Well, hello, happy Monday to all of my um, cosmic mission, Aries, friends, light beings who are listening to this podcast. Thank you for being here. Thank you for keep tuning into my podcast. I'm Al. I'm the creator and host of this podcast. And I'm here to talk to you guys today about a very big subject that I have been trying to put together for the very longest time, and I felt the last couple of days I'm finally able to put it all together. But it's going to be in a series, or if not, I'll be talking for 5 hours. And the reason why I said it's a subject is an idea that my sister actually empowered me to talk about. And when she first introduced this to me, I was just like, whoa, this is a very big subject to tackle. And being that we grew up very Christian, Southern Baptist, it was a subject matter that we've always heard about from many other people. And we both talked about it, and we felt like, it's never really been dissected that well on how we end up this way. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you guys. This is called the Sloth series on the Cosmic Mission. And I'm just going to break it up into 3 episodes because, like I said, there's so much to talk about, there's so much to digest that I would like to start off in different parts so it's easier for everyone to understand what we're talking about here. And what we're talking about here is sloth. And I'm just going to dive right into it or journey right into it. There's no need for me to delay it. So I looked it up. The sloth definition is sloth. It is a reluctance to work, to make an effort of laziness slash complacency. And the reason why I started off with a definition because I feel like a lot of time we do need a working definition so we can start dissecting a definition, or we can start dissecting into what that definition is saying and reading about. And this is just gonna add that in there too. No, guys, we are not talking about those furry sloths that we see down in Central America, where they are slowly crawling up a tree with a baby in tow. No, that's not the slothism I'm talking about. And the other slothism I'm not talking about is a laziness to work or to get out the house. That's not the laziness that we're talking about. We're talking about a spiritual sloth. That is the genesis of how this all works. We're talking about a spiritual slothism that is in a lot of us, including myself for a very long time. The reason why it took me a long time to dive into this work is because I've been in a sloth until, like I said, a couple of years ago. Now we're not. I feel like we're not. I mean, I'm always growing, but now I'm aware of where my slothism was and how I got rid of it. And I'm just going to talk about my experience with it, and hopefully that will help some of you guys. Maybe you're in the same situation that I was or am in, or maybe you're in it and you like to wake up from it. But this part one, we're just going to talk about how we land on being a sloth, and it's really not our fault how we land on it. And like I just want to put a cautionary sign up there. This is literally just an offering to you guys. Meaning, this is my opinion about it. Like I said, I've done a lot of thinking. I've done a lot of meditation over this on how to introduce slothism to all of you guys. And like I said, that's just offering a message and my take on slothism. And I'm just going to start off the top by saying slothism is a universal violation. And what I mean by that is, in a lot of religious traditions, it's actually classified as a sin. And you guys are probably wondering how and why is this a universal violation? And we're going to dive into that, journey into it. Sloth becomes a physical violation only when the being forgets its true identity, its true divinity. When one never self actualizes and wakes up to its true self, which is an infinite light being, that is initially being the sloth. So we started with the textbook violation, and then I just went into the spiritual part on how we become a sloth. Once again, when we forget about our true divinity and our true light, our infinite light that's inside of us, that's being sloth. And that's why this is a universal violation, is when we focus only on this sack of cells that we're in, we totally forget about our true light, and then we become a sloth. So that was my take on being a sloth and how this happens. And I'm just going to explain real quickly of who we really are. We are not these. This is just the vessel that we're in to have a human experience. But on the other side of it, guys, our true selves, in essence, is a naturally expansive being, meaning that when we get incarnated down here into this physical earth school and into this body, we stuff ourselves into these human bodies, which is just made up of stacked cells. The body is so condensed, we're so stuffing ourselves into this dense little body. And like I said, we forget who we are because we see this all the time and we don't see our higher beings. So it's kind of like this thing that's out of sight, out of mind. You know, I can see the physical body, but I can't see the spiritual one, which is one that is animating all of this. This is where your consciousness lives. Just going to reiterate that. I know we talked about that on previous episodes, but I'm going to say it again because I feel like this is very important to sloth and how we wind up this way. So once again, guys, when we're expansive beings, light beings, and we stuff ourselves into these bodies, these dense cell bodies, and if the dreamer doesn't wake up to that, then you fall into the sloth category because now you're completely reliant on this physical body for everything, and you've forgotten the true nature of yourself. That's being a sloth. So you guys are probably wondering, why is sloth a violation? And I would say, like I said before, when we forget our divinity, when we forget our true identity, that's how we become in that sloth category. And like I said before, it's not really our fault how we wound up on this. It's only when we choose to dim our own light. That is when we deprive the soul and we deprive the light being within inside of us, when we're choosing the physical avatar over our divine selves. And this is how this energy shift happens. And with my journey of learning my soul, I learned over these last couple of months, especially this last couple of weeks, the soul only knows how to create and expand. That's what it's here for, is to create and expand. And like I mentioned before and a few moments ago, when we forget to create and expand, that's depriving the soul. That's dimming the lights. That's dimming our soul's light. And we're shrinking the soul to only be this physical avatar of cells. And that is not where we should be in this existence. We should want to create, and we should want to keep expanding and having a ton of experiences. This is what this is for. And like I said, the soul only knows how to grow and expand. And when we starve the soul from expansion through experiences, we dim the light, and it's like blowing out a candle. That's a good way to think about this. When we blow out that light, or we try to blow it out with our egos, this is how all this goes down. And you're probably wondering, Al, How do I go about dimming my light? How did this happen? And I'm going to say, you know what? Let's pipe down and let's journey right into how and the whys and the whats and the wheres. We're going to continue with the reluctance to do the spiritual work starts with life's distractions, meaning complacency is the main branch of the sloth behavior. And what I mean by life distractions is none of this stuff is by accident. All this physical stuff that we get intoxicated with as a light traveler, it seems very real to us. This is why The Matrix is so much of a profound movie, is because it's explaining how we wind up only in the Matrix, only in the physical world. And it's not by accident, guys. This training starts early. The creation of your false identity and your physical self starts early. And I'm going to say, guys, it's a pre-programming that runs for a lifetime if you allow it. What do I mean by that, if you allow it? If we never wake up, guys, this program that's installed into your hard drive, the brain, the mind, can run the whole lifetime, your whole life cycle, until you reach that bridge where you're about to cross over. And then that's only when the being wakes up and sees the other side and realizes this was the dream, this was the false identity. And then now it's too late because the body is diseased or failing, and the soul is ready to leave it. So I don't want people to end up that way. And I've seen it a lot when I used to shadow my dad on the sick and shut-in list when he was pastoring. And I never told anyone this, but there were always a few people who would tell me to, son, wake up, go live your life, because don't end up like us in this hospital to where someone needs to come in and pray for me to have a good, safe journey to the afterlife. So I always took that with me. I ignored it for a very long time, but coming back into myself and my own light, did these memories come back to me? So that's why I'm living in the present now, living the present moment now. And it's because of that childhood stuff that I buried a long time ago. And I'm bringing it back to the forefront to remind myself to continue my own growth and to continue my own spiritual light journey on this planet and recognizing who I really am. And this is why I'm in front of you guys talking on this podcast, is really explaining to you guys how we landed here. So I'm going to continue on. Like I said, guys, this is all, dimming your light is a pre-program. And the reason why I say it's a pre-program is because it's installed in us. The ego gets downloaded at an early age, and that is our false identity. Because like I said, guys, we come into this planet with the soul's identity, which is the first one. The second one is the ego, or yourself, the physical self. That can be a false identity. And like I just want to say also, when the ego gets downloaded, the software programming starts between 0 to 7. That is where the downloading and the hacking of your subconscious and your mind happens, 0 to 7, because we're so young, we're so fresh to this earth. We incarnate down here without any recollection of our previous life. We lose all memory in this realm for some reason. Not sure why, but that's just the way. That's just the way this goes down in this particular realm. We lose our complete memory of who we are, and this is wherein lies the physical being starts to take hold. And the reason why I say this downloaded is because these beliefs are not really ours. It's taught to us. And like I said, it's from 0 to 7 where these beliefs are installed into us, it's told to us, And the reason why I said it's someone else's is because someone has told you who you are. And it starts with our parents, and it starts with our, let's just say, larger tribe that we meet, which is aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, older elders in your tribe, or people around your age eventually when you start getting older. They start telling you who you are. They start telling you about your physical avatar. And then, like I said, the dreamer forgets his true nature. And then, since this is physical, it only wants to learn about the physical avatar and its ways and how that happens. And I'm just going to go with the child development definition of how this happens, because I remember this from my child development days when I was trying to be a teacher. But I told you guys that journey didn't happen. So how this happens, and according to child development shaping, it's a behavioral modification technique where your caregiver or slash educator gradually reinforces small steps that is progressively gets a person closer to the desired behavior. And I'm just going to say this as well. And it's also accompanied by positive reinforcement, which is just praises and rewards. So, what is this saying, guys? This is saying that through shaping from our parents, our caregivers, our extended family, like I said, other tribal members that we come in contact with, we learn the ways of the avatar. We learn behavioral modifications through shaping and also positive reinforcement, to where if we are succeeding and let's say the tribe starts rewarding you with these physical gifts, guess what's going to start happening, guys? You're going to start to want to keep doing these avatar things, only because it's not only bringing your tribe rewards and praises, but it feeds the ego. This is how the ego starts going from this to this. And then the expansive being that you are goes from this to this. So it's like this inverse of energy that starts. Because when we come here, guys, we have this huge expansiveness about us. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but kids always talk about the other side when they're young. Or they have an imaginary friend, or they remember things about a previous life when they're really, really young. It's only when, like I said, through shaping, to where we start to inverse that energy, and that's when children stop remembering who they are, and they start focusing on the ego and the avatar. So this is where this begins, guys. It's really early on. Like I said, 0 to 7. By 6 or 7, the child is normally aware of their physical selves. But let's say from 0 to about 4 or 5, that's when the kid is closest to source. So any parents out there, guys, let your children be who they are. Try not to install too much because these ideas can go for a lifetime. And without these programs being checked and updated over the child's time or the being's time, like I said, it runs the whole course until it's time to cross that rainbow bridge. So let's continue on and let's talk about how the physical ego begins. Like I said, the physical ego begins when your parents, mom, dad, brothers, sisters, other members of your tribe, tells you of your name. And I think I mentioned this in one of my previous episodes. I feel like in the spiritual world, we really don't have names. I can't confirm or deny it, only because I've never been on that other side to confirm it. But from what I know, I don't think we have names. It's only here in this physical world that we do learn of a name. So for instance, for me, I learned very early I'm Al. Or I learned very early who my mom was or who my dad was. These faces that I've been seeing for, a year and a half or two when I'm just coming out and growing. into a toddler, we were trying to associate these faces. And then, like I said, eventually through language, we start to associate names with these faces. And so that's how I started learning about who my parents are, my sisters, and all that kind of stuff. So, that's where it starts, guys. And then also during those early stages in life, we learn about family values. That gets downloaded to us and what it means to be a part of this family. The last name, that carries a lot of expectations. It carries a lot of ego expectations, and it also creates a download into the child to where they say, oh, well, I'm a part of this family, so this is how this always goes down. So once again, guys, these ideas start early. And like I said, these ideas are not yours because it's not coinciding with your higher self. This is just the ego. And this is how we start learning about the ego. And then more downloads come when we start learning about, I'm going to just say, we start learning about our tribes, religion, our economic statuses. We learn about our own gender, and circling back to religious beliefs. We learn these religious beliefs early on, which is ingrained further into the mind. So, like I said, guys, when we're 3 or 4 attending our first, let's say, organized church religion, this is where we start learning of our family and our tribe's identity. We learn about our faith. We start learning about the religious practices, and normally, guys, our religious beliefs come from a family member. It comes from where we grow up. So that's why I said before at the beginning of this episode, a lot of these things are not our own, only because it's been taught to us. And like I said, the family or the tribe instills that into us by saying, this is what we do, this is what you're going to believe in. And like I said, we start learning about the physical avatar, and we start distancing ourselves from the higher being and what the higher being wants to do, because we want to please our tribe. That's the main focus on how the sloth behavior starts, because we've forgotten who we are. And let's just circle back to what I was saying. Like I said, the religious beliefs are further ingrained into the ego's mind at an early age, which is also commingled with positive reinforcement. So that means the being or the child begins to create and shape its own personality to please the tribe. Meaning, let's say you finally, want to, I don't know, go to dance class, or you finally want to go to Sunday school or some other temple. That gets positive reinforcement from the tribe, and it feels good to the ego because they're getting patted on the back. The ego's getting stroked, which means we're going to further do it. We're going to further want to do it, so we can keep getting that positive reinforcement and become this obedient and trustworthy child to our caregivers. So again, guys, this is how this begins. And thinking back to my experience of how I created the physical ego of Al, this is how this began. For me, I had to think about it. Like I said, the spiritual awakening is just not, knowing who you are. It's also doing the shadow work. It's also doing the meditative work and finding out where all these ideas initially came from. This is how this goes down. So let's just continue on with how I feel this goes down. The ego continues to take on these earthly beliefs. It adapts these beliefs further into their identity. Meaning they're taking the religion, their gender, their economic status, their tribe's beliefs, and they're further ingraining these beliefs into their memory, putting it into the subconscious, and the being is recording everything. And like I said before, guys, the ego becomes so strong after a couple of years with the child that it wants to learn everything about the ego and the avatar. Because like I said, once families start praising you about, the correct right behavior and start stroking your ego, this is how it begins to create your own physical ego of who you are. And like we want to circle back to is when we start taking on these earthly physical, when we start taking on these earthly beliefs, we further start separating ourselves from the true self. Meaning, if you guys haven't paid attention in that last couple of years, people have said I was born this way. There are certain things about our psyche, about ourself, that we're just born with, and I'm here to tell you guys that's just soul memory. That is the soul coming through. That's the consciousness coming through. And the best way to explain that is, like, for me, took me a long time to realize it, but I have this initial thing in me to be gay. I don't know where that came from, but only way I can explain that is it came from my soul's memory. It came from my soul knowledge. And I did the best I could because, like I said, I learned at an early age that, homosexuality was wrong. So I was doing everything I could to fight against that, my soul's identity. And I started feeding into the ego only because I got praises for evolving out of it. And in actuality, the physical part of it I got the praise from, but it just the whole thing trying to be straight just felt wrong. And that's what I mean by we come here with soul knowledge, is because I was trying to be this physical ego Al, but in actuality that whole thing just felt completely wrong. And that is a prime example I want you guys to think about as you go about your daily after this episode. Is think about things in your life that you know how to do even before you were taught something else. That is normally your soul's knowledge. You were born that way. That's what I'm trying to say, like Lady Gaga song. But like I said, guys, this soul knowledge goes beyond just your sexual orientation. It can go into other things. Like for me, I've always been really good with ancient history. A few weeks ago, my soul finally told me why. I can't say why, but I know why I have a take on ancient history. And that's what I'm another prime example of how we come here with certain things we like and certain things we love how to do. And this is why a lot of time when we do visit someone in psychology or maybe other spiritual enthusiasts, they always tell us to go back to our childhood. Go back to when you can remember your consciousness, because that's where we know where the true nature of your soul is. And sometimes, guys, this doesn't come easy. It comes with practice. It comes with meditation. Sometimes people have to go see a hypnotist or have an out-of-body experience to remember things. So if you guys haven't done so already, I encourage you guys to, like I said, go seek help. Psychologists are really good these days. You can find one. Hypnotist. What's another one? Having an out-of-body experience. Some people do ayahuasca. So if you guys are really serious about, really learning or relearning about yourself, let me do that. Try one of those things, and I think you might get back to the root of who you are and why this whole ego, this false identity, isn't really gelling with you. And I want to say that, I want to also add to that is, this is where the midlife crisis comes from. I mean, I know I'm going to talk about some other stuff, but Midlife crisis is just an identity crisis because your soul is finally trying to wake up, and then you're trying to remember yourself, and then but you're still trying to live in your as your physical ego because your physical ego is so familiar to you that you don't want to give it up. Again, guys, this is where the midlife crisis, to my opinion, starts. Is when we're so familiar with the old life, we don't want to step into the new life because the new life is scary, is new. Well, it feels new to the dreamer, but it's not. But anyway, guys, I just felt like I had to say that. I don't know where that came from, but I put it out there. So, um, like I said, let's circle back to the ego further separates your true self identity, because the ego is taking over, it's growing. And for me, from my experience with it, it really happened very subtly. It wasn't like any traumatic thing happened to me. It's just looking back at everything, it was such a subtle process that I even forgot where the ideas came from, how I even started to take on physical ego traits. And for some people, it might be a little more traumatic. We all go through different life experiences with our families and our tribes. But like I said, sometimes it's very subtle. The ego starts to grow. And then sometimes, like I said, it's a traumatic event that happens where we start creating these false identities. And for me, like I said, me coming along with my physical owl, it was a very slow dimming because I was fighting it at first, but like I was mentioning a few moments ago, once I started to get positive reinforcement, this is where I started to give up on myself. And I was just having a dream last night. I remember as a little boy, I used to talk to myself in my sleep a lot. And sometimes it still happens, and I caught myself a few weeks ago doing it. The reason why I said I found out about a past life, but I'm starting to understand now is I've been talking to my higher self for the very longest time, or I've been talking to something else on the other side. It's a very friendly thing. It's a very friendly conversation. But this is what I was doing as a little boy. But I realized through family tribal interactions as this is a wrong thing to do. It was downloaded to me that it was evil. I was talking to a demon or something like that. So I did the best I could to not go into the spiritual world. The reason why I've been so afraid of it for so long. So, like I said, guys, this is something that I had to realize. And this just came to me, like I said, a few nights ago, about a realization that I forgot about. And like I said, through shaping and through praise, kids often forget about these things. And the program just runs. And just a few nights ago, I had to stop that running program, digest it, look at it, and see if I can start another program and delete that program. So the fear of the other side is gone. And like I said, it's all because I caught it and I stopped that program from running. So that's another example of what I mean by stopping running programs, is when you start catching yourself in the moment and then you start realizing that this is something that's been innate to you for a very long time. And like I said, you can just stop the ego's running program and then restart your own spiritual identity again. And hopefully that helps you guys out in processing the things I've said about how we start separating ourselves from our true higher selves. And I'll just continue with, there's another branch to this whole process from beginning with complacency. We're coming into conformity now. And this is another concept that gets really gnarly over the years. So conformity begins with, like I keep talking about, praising and awards. It's a desire to fit in. Children often, when they start learning about themselves, they say something. Let's just say they blurt something out. The other kids are just poking fun of them. Well, guess what happens, guys? We start to hold that in, and then we start to record and listen to what the other kids are saying. And then we just kind of emulate that, regurgitate it back out so we can fit in. Or maybe another behavioral thing that kids do at an early age that's innate to them gets made fun of by either the kids, the tribe, and then now the kid is doing everything they can to not recreate that behavior, and they start to become this other identity, this other behavior that's not natural to them. So this is why I said this is a very important thing to talk about, is how this stuff starts happening. And continuing on with fitting in, when we start to fit in and we start getting those praises, the ego starts to thrive, and it's these praises starts feeding the ego. And the reason why I said the ego starts to take over is because when the ego finally gets fed all of these praises, all of these things, it grows, and then the ego wants more. And this is how we create the ego, guys. And this is how conformity really starts setting in, and it starts creating complacency, because now we not only want to be like our family members, but now we want to be like our tribe. We want to be like the rest of society. And we start taking on these societal things. And like I said, guys, this whole thing is not really our fault because we don't catch it so early. It takes a long time to catch it. But hopefully I can talk to you guys today, and you guys can start catching yourselves and stopping these matrix programming and restart, deleting those matrix programming, and then restart those programs you stopped a long time ago and bring it back into light. And let's continue on. The ego is getting fed these praises, meaning it's becoming fat, it's becoming sloth. Because like I said, guys, when you're feeding it, guess what? It expands and grows. This is how this happens, guys. Once you start, the tribe starts feeding more and more praises, more and more, good job, great job on that A, good job on that class, good job on this, good job on that, you're talking to girls. Once again, it starts feeding the ego starts expanding, complacency grows, sloth grows, and like I said, sometimes the dreamer is not even aware that they are doing this. So the ego is choosing to dim the light, to silence the true inner self. Because I remember as a kid, and everyone keeps talking about that inner voice, and I'm here to say it again, guys, that inner voice is your soul talking to you. And as a kid, I remember it talked to me a lot, but I decided to ignore it because, like I said, I had certain things in my soul memory that I knew about. But like I said, I chose to create Al. I chose to put Al in the forefront because Al was getting all the praises. And this is where, like I said, putting this episode together, I had to do my own searching, soul diving to put this together. And like it was really hard to reveal these things to you guys because it's things that I've been told that I can't talk about and I shouldn't talk about, but I'm gonna talk about with you guys. So this is what I mean, guys, by doing the work. Like I said, the ego starts to silence the inner being, and it starts to even like I said, ignore the gut intuitions. Because when we are becoming our physical avatar selves, the soul is literally fighting it. It's not like this is something that, the inner being is trying to just go along with. It's going to fight the child for a while. And, if you guys ever have kids, this is why, terrible twos and terrible, and let's say threes, are so difficult for the kids because they're finally learning all this stuff and they're just like, that doesn't really mesh with me very well. But then, like I said, through slow reinforcement or traumatic reinforcements, which is normally like spankings and stuff like that, then the kid starts really, excelling that ego further because they don't want a spanking or they don't want, being yelled at from their caregivers. So guess what, guys? The child starts creating that identity a little sooner than later, all because, like I said, shaping is a desired behavior by the caregiver, a desired behavior by the parents. And like I said before in this episode, is something the dreamer, something the being doesn't like. We are, and I'm going to say this is all for all inner beings, inner light beings out there. We do not like pain. We do not like confrontations, and we don't like not being in love. And when we don't get those things, guys, the soul starts to starve. It starts to shrink, and this is why early on we like to please who's taking care of us because we don't like those things. We don't like anger. We don't like confrontation. We don't like not being in love with something. So this is where these installments really start beginning. And so, like I just mentioned before, this is where the identity crisis comes from with kids, is because they're trying to be this other identity for the tribe, but they also know about their source as well. It's just up to the child or the being to finally make that switch over to the ego and then push back the inner being to where the inner being goes to sleep in life. And this can take years for this to happen. And again, when the child finally decides to accept the behavior, they do get praise from the tribe. And this is now the false identity. And like I said, guys, throw it all together. This is where the sloth behavior is born. The ego's finally taken over. The being is believing in this physical avatar. The being is believing in these earthly beliefs. The being is now believing in their tribe's beliefs. This is the false identity. And like I said, guys, this is where the sloth behavior is born. And if you guys ever do your own research or your own soul diving, you will probably realize and actualize that this did happen around probably 0 to 7. Sometimes 8. It takes a little longer for some kids to get in program, get in step with the family, but it's normally around that time, guys. And when I was doing my own soul searching for this episode, it literally was between 3 to 7, because I was talking with my sister about this. It's between 3 and 7 where it was really trying to be pounded into me how to be Al and what Al looks like. So that's the thing I want to share with you guys about this. And then continuing on, now that we've established how the sloth behavior is born, now that this false identity is installed by the being itself, the ego starts to push the true self into the passenger seat. So when I was doing this, I was thinking about, well, how do I explain this to people? How do I physically tell you guys how this happens? So let's say for the first couple of years, let's say envision a car. The inner being is in the driver's seat in life, and then the ego is in the passenger seat or maybe in the back, chilling out because it doesn't know how to drive. When we start being conscious about ourselves and, our egos, how to fit in, what the tribe's looking like, there's like a switch. It's like the car stops. The ego probably yells at the the inner one and says, get out the way. You don't know how to do this anymore. I'm taking over. And so when I was putting this episode together, that's exactly what I was thinking of. Let's say there's a friend in the car with you. They don't like your driving. They finally get fed up with you and they tell you to stop the car, get out. I'm taking over. You get in the passenger seat. I'm taking over for once. And, that's initially what the ego does. It starts barking and yelling at the inner one. The inner one doesn't like it, so it's just like, fine. If you know better than me, then I'm just going to sit in the back and I'm going to let you drive. And that was an analogy of how I was able to explain this to you guys in a good way. So like I said, guys, the The ego or yourself, let's say Al, puts the inner being or the self or the light self, the true self, into the passenger seat and takes over the drive of life. Meaning the avatar goes into overdrive. So let's say, like I said, guys, the car is parked on the side of a cosmic highway. The inner being puts the life, and it happens really fast. Let's say just puts the car in the park. They have a discussion. Inner self switches over to the passenger seat. Ego transfers over to the driver's seat, puts the car back into overdrive, let's say, and takes off for the rest of this cosmic travel time on this highway. And once the avatar takes over, guys, we start to really focus on the physical matter. We start to focus on physical matter is the only thing that matters, and the spiritual stuff doesn't matter. And herein lies how slothism continues beyond 7 into adolescence, into teenage years, and then it gets solidified into our adult years. And when we learn that physical matter is important, it becomes very intoxicating to the being. Meaning, more praises and awards comes from the tribe. The more normative things that we do, the more normative behaviors, or what's called normal, starts being projected from the child or projected from the adolescent. The more, physical things we get rewarded with. It could be cash, it could be clothing, it could be a new toy. It's something physical that the being can now associate love to. This is how we start really being complacent, and we start learning the avatar, because like I said, the tribe is now stroking the ego. You're getting all these new beautiful physical things, and now you're associating all this stuff with physical things. And that's how I was thinking about when I was putting this episode together, is getting those praises, getting those awards from the tribe, further solidifying Al's ego that they wanted me to be. And like I said, guys, this grows to become dominant. And so let's just think about it. The ego is getting all these awards and trinkets and lovely food. Meanwhile, the soul is starving and is silenced, meaning the ego is not sharing the wealth with the inner being. The ego is not sharing the food, not sharing the trinkets. The soul is getting nothing. It is being starved out. And this is where the slothism starts, guys. When you start starving out your soul, this is why this is a universal violation. It's because we forget our divinity, and we just focus on the ego, and the ego starts to be a mean girl. The ego starts to be a mean girl to the soul, and then now the soul is being starved and pushed out of the vehicle. So this is how this all begins, guys. And it's like I said, it seems so subtle and it seems very polite, but like I said, it's a very serious thing to forget who you are, forget your divinity. So, like I said, guys, the ego is shrinking the soul's ability to communicate, meaning your inner voice stops, or it's very, how do I say, it's very subtle. You don't really hear it. And this is why meditation and contemplation is encouraged in adulthood and actually through our life, is because when we stop all this thinking, all this chaos up here, the inner self can finally talk. Or if you take the time to listen, to stop all the rhetoric in your head, now the inner voice can come through and talk to you. So that's why I did that episode on contemplation, and that's why in my other episode, I think it was episode 2 I was talking about meditation. Meditation, contemplation, put it together, guys. You can finally listen to your inner voice again. You can bring it back into the forefront, and you can stop being that false identity that we've created. So I'm just going to say, what are we talking about here? And what we're talking about here, guys, is our physical tribe puts so much importance on physical matter that it becomes the most important thing. And I'm going to name off some things that I feel like the tribe puts on us to obtain. And like I said, it becomes so important that we just forget about our divine selves, our true identity, because we want to continue to please our tribe. And what we learn we must obtain is we must obtain physical wealth. We must obtain physical education. We must adorn our bodies to look attractive. We got to get cars. We have to get houses. We have to get, like I said, more money. We have to search for a physical relationship with someone else. That's going to bring us happiness. Some people are power hungry, and that's just the physical stuff. And then we're going to go into the social downloads, is that we learn about our skin color and what that means, and all the things behind that, and who we are in this physical body. We also learn fear in these early days. We learn about wars. We learn about our government, meaning we learn about our nationality. And then we also, with all that being said, we learn about separation and we learn about division. And like I said, guys, this is very all gradual over the being's time of learning their physical selves. All these things start getting installed. So if you guys are following me with this stuff, all these physical avatar matrix things are getting installed into the kid, into the adolescent. And then I'm just going to say it, the granddaddy of them all, or the grandmother of them all, that solidifies all of these things I just talked about, is religious beliefs. Those get installed very early, if not around 2 or 3, when the kid finally starts talking and walking, is where the parents or the tribe starts instilling these religious beliefs into the kid. And this is, like I said, guys, the part to where we finally come to the false identity. Meaning, all these things that I just talked about is not of your true nature, it's not of your true self. This is all matrix stuff. This is all ego stuff. This is stuff that is foreign to the dreamer. And I'm just going to also try to close this out with, once all this is downloaded, having wealth and money and education, you gotta adorn the body. You gotta have houses and cars, and you gotta have all these multiple physical relationships all the time. We learn, like I said, we learn our skin color. We learn about our government. We learn about our religion that we're supposed to believe in. The tribe celebrates all this stuff, and like I said, guys, this is why I said this is not our fault. Is the tribe that we know celebrates all this stuff, if they know it or not. Some people's tribes are intentional about downloading these social normatives. Some, they don't know it because they're only doing it because they were taught that. So it just gets generationally passed down. So like I said, guys, some of it is intentional, some of it is not. And like I said, guys, learning about this physical avatar is not our fault. Like I said, if we never do the deep dive into our true identity, we're never going to detach from this false identity, this false ego that we created. So, like I said, going back to the tribe celebrates all this stuff, guys. Further, I'm just going to say it, cementing our beliefs into our minds, into our consciousness, into our subconsciousness. And this is how this happens. And like I said, guys, once the being is being rewarded, we have a fully installed false identity. And you guys are probably like thinking, well, that's not true, Al. Well, and I'm going to say do the work and find out. Because once you start meditating and doing some contemplation, or maybe thinking back to your childhood and where these ideas came from, you're going to start realizing it's going to be an epiphany. You might start crying, or you might be a little angry, and that's natural to feel, guys, because now you're deciding on who you really are, and it's hard to let go. And this is where, like in the Matrix, Morpheus told Neo, and I think I mentioned this in the previous episode, but I think I'm able to explain it better now. That's why he told Neo, when a mind gets to a certain age, it's hard to free it because it wants to hang on. It doesn't want to let go. And like I mentioned before in this episode, letting go is a hard thing to do because it's so familiar to the being. The ego does not want to be diminished. It wants to hang on to everything. It wants to claw, scratch, and stay in existence. And this is where persistence takes over in an awakening experience, guys, is because the ego will try to want to take over. And it will do everything to stay in power. It will do self-doubt, self-sabotage. All these different negative things will start coming into your head, like, what are you doing? You can't do that. Which is things that I encountered too when I was doing this, when I was truly waking up to myself, is the ego started to scream, yell, scratch, claw, doing the best thing it could to stay alive. And it was resisting my inner self from coming into existence. So hopefully that's an example of what I mean by all this, guys. And just to close out this part one episode, throw everything that I just talked about for the last 56 minutes together. Sum it all up, guys. This is called Inception. I know I talked about this movie before, but I'm going to talk about it again. Inception is where someone hacks into your own subconscious, plants an idea. This idea grows into a fully running program or a false identity. So, and then to also expand on that, guys, about Inception is when someone intercedes or incepts your hardware, your subconscious, the idea is so subtly put in there that the dreamer, the being, doesn't even realize it's being hacked. Meaning, someone can place an idea there into your mind, and it organically starts to grow to the point. What I mean is, the reason why I say it's organically starting to grow is because the being will forget who or what installed that program, installed that belief. And like I said, guys, these things are so ingrained in us that we will fight it. We will say, nothing's wrong with me. Oh, I don't need to change. What else happens when the ego is getting threatened? I don't believe it. There's so many different things, like I said, guys, and this is really just inception. Someone or something place an idea into your subconscious, and it has grown so organically that it will be hard for you to trace the genesis of where and who that belief came from. And that's what I mean by Inception, guys. So if you guys watch the movie, you're welcome again. I just explained the whole movie to you guys. That is Inception, planting an idea so organically into someone's mind that the dreamer, the being, it's hard for them to trace the genesis of where it came from. And once again, guys, this is a part of becoming an awakened individual. Is thinking back to the inception, thinking back to that idea of where and who it came from. And this is where, like I said, guys, waking up, this is a part of it. Now, once you figure out who put that there, what happened for you to think this way, now you can start re-evaluating your whole entire self. Reinstalling your true identity and, let's say, letting go of the old identity. And this is where I had to do a lot of the work, was remembering where a lot of these things came from. And that's the reason why I was so drawn to Inception. Like I said, I always watched it because of the action scenes and, the whole layering dreams within dreams. But once I started to just kick all that stuff out of my mind and just rewatch the movie as what it is, I figured out the core of what that movie is talking about, and that's incepting an idea. And like I said, guys, it grows so organically. You have forgotten where it came from. You don't want to question it. You don't want to revisit it. And I'm just telling you guys today, it's time to revisit. It's time to question. It's time to start questioning everything about you. And I just want to tell you guys this. Do not be afraid to question. I know this is something, especially in Western society, especially here in America, nobody wants to question everything. It's wrong. It's a sacrilege. You shouldn't do it. Well, I'm just catering to being a sloth if I never start questioning. I never start trying to figure out where this belief came from. I never want to remember myself. Guys, this is where slothism starts. This is where it begins, and this is how sloth is a running program in our lives if we allow it to happen. And I just want to tell you guys today, on this beautiful Monday afternoon, it's time to wake up, guys. It's time to stop being a sloth. Wake up to your true self, and like I said, guys, relearn about yourself. Do the work. Stay persistent, because like I mentioned a few moments ago, the ego is going to realize what you're doing, and it's going to start having, like I said, doubts, rejection, and fear. Fear is the biggest thing, guys, and we have to stay persistent on fear. Fear is what drives this whole society. This is what the Matrix wants us to believe, that we fear things that we don't know. And I'm here to tell you guys that when you do not lead your lives with fear, you can really do this. And once you start waking up to your true identity, guys, when you start to realize you are the universe and the universe is you, you can live unafraid. And that's what I had to say last night, actually, before I went to bed. I told the universe just that. I am the universe. Universe is me. Meaning, this is all energy passing through these stacked cells. And the main thing that I can function in this life with is my consciousness, is my inner true self. So, like I said, guys, this is how you walk without fear. When you start to realize who you are, a true light being that's expansive and large, you can stop being afraid of all this physical stuff. So this concludes part 1. I can't believe I talked an hour, but I'll be back with part 2. We're going to talk about the religious and spiritual beliefs that we learn in detail, the reason I wanted to break this up. So happy full moon, guys. If you haven't been out there, the Gemini moon is here, meaning this is a time of gratitude. This is a time of thanks. So I don't care how small of you or how small you think a thank you is. It just could be that you have a roof over your head. It could be you can put gas in your car. It could be that you can afford an apple. Or you're thankful for your kids or your mom and dad, or whatever you think you can be thankful for, guys. This is the time to say thanks. I think we still have another couple of days of Gemini moon, but try to set yourself up for a prosperous year. And this is where it happens, guys. There's still a few more weeks left in December. So once again, guys, channel that Gemini moon energy. Be gracious for everything in your life, and you'll prepare yourselves for the new year. You'll be ahead of the game and ahead of those dang New Year's resolutions. So I encourage you guys to start those resolutions now. Not resolutions. Start manifesting now. Like I said, guys, be thankful and be gracious for everything in your life. I don't care how small or big it is. Just be thankful and write it down. If you're not journaling, guys, I really encourage you guys to journal. So thank you for paying attention. This is part 1 of Sloth, and I will see you guys on part 2 of the Cosmic Mission.